The mahogany-paneled lobby of St. Vincent's Academy gleamed with polished marble floors and chandeliers imported from Italy. Parents in tailored suits and luxury dresses lingered, their eyes watchful as they waited for their children to finish orchestra rehearsal. Among them stood Richard Caldwell, a billionaire CEO known for his empire of tech companies, his wealth, and, though whispered quietly, his pride. He was a man who expected perfection, in himself and others. As Richard checked his Rolex, his gaze landed on someone out of place, the school janitor. A man in his late 50s, with graying hair and calloused hands, standing nervously in line at the pawn shop across the street. Through the wide glass windows, Richard saw him holding something, a violin. Richard frowned. A janitor pawning an instrument? Probably desperate for a few bucks. He shook his head, muttering to himself. Some people don't value art. A violin in hands like his is wasted. He turned away, but the image lingered, stirring both judgment and curiosity. That evening, after rehearsal, Richard's 12-year-old daughter, Emily, came rushing toward him, her eyes sparkling. Daddy, guess what? My teacher said I need a violin at home for extra practice. Can I get one? Richard sighed. Of course, sweetheart. We'll order the best one tomorrow. But Emily shook her head. I don't want the best one. I want a real one. Something with history. Something alive. Richard chuckled, ruffling her hair. Instruments don't breathe, Emily. She pouted. Maybe not. But they carry stories. I want one with a story. Against his usual instincts to buy something brand new, Richard remembered the janitor and the violin. Perhaps fate was nudging him. The next day, curiosity won. He stopped by the same pawn shop. To his surprise, the violin was still there, resting in a glass case, worn yet dignified. Its wood carried scratches and faded varnish, but there was a quiet beauty in its survival. The shop owner leaned closer. That violin belonged to one of our regulars. Hard times forced him to let it go. He said it once gave him hope. Richard raised a brow. The janitor's violin? He almost dismissed it. A billionaire buying a second-hand instrument? Absurd. Yet something about it tugged at him. Against his better judgment, he purchased it. That night, he presented the violin to Emily. Her eyes lit up as though he had placed treasure in her hands. It's perfect, she whispered. It feels different. Richard smirked. Careful, it's not some magic relic. But as Emily placed the bow on the strings and drew out the first trembling note, something shifted. The sound wasn't polished, not yet, but it carried a raw, aching depth, as if the instrument itself was telling its story through her. Emily played again. This time, the notes came alive, haunting, tender, filled with longing. Richard froze, his heart unexpectedly tightening. He hadn't felt emotion through music in years, not since his late wife, Emily's mother, used to play piano in their home. He swallowed hard. Emily, how are you doing that? She shrugged. It's like the violin already knows me. Days turned into weeks. Emily practiced tirelessly, her talent blossoming with startling speed. Teachers marveled at her progress, calling her a prodigy. But Richard's mind kept drifting back to the janitor. He couldn't shake the image of the man handing over that violin with trembling fingers, as if giving away a piece of his soul. Finally, he asked the headmaster about him. Oh, that would be Mr. Harris, the headmaster replied. He's been with us for years. Used to be a musician, I believe, before, well, life got difficult. Something clicked in Richard's mind. He had judged a man too quickly, assuming poverty meant lack of value. Now, he wasn't so sure. One evening, Richard spotted Mr. Harris mopping the school hallway. The violin case was in Richard's hand. Mr. Harris, Richard began stiffly. This violin, it was yours, wasn't it? The janitor's eyes widened, then softened with a sad smile. Yes, sir. I taught myself to play as a boy. Music kept me alive when the world turned its back. But when my wife got sick, I couldn't afford her medicine. The violin had to go. Richard stood frozen, guilt pressing heavily on his chest. All this time, I thought it was worthless in his hands, when in truth, it was priceless to him.